Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to really get under the hood of complex ideas. And today, we're tackling a big one. Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Super influential book, right? Changed how a lot of people think about money. Our mission, basically, is to pull out the key insights from this guide, the stuff about, developing that wealth mindset. The whole thing is built around this contrast, the story of two dads. You've got his actual dad, the poor dad, smart guy, PhD, believed in the whole job security thing. And then there's his friend's dad, the rich dad, more street smart and entrepreneur, really focused on financial smarts, not just school grades.
Sure.
Okay, so let's unpack this idea. It's quite a shift in perspective.
Yeah, and it's important to see it's not just a story, right? Kiyosaki uses these two figures to represent totally different ways of thinking, different philosophies about money, about assets, even about work itself. It really pushes you, the listener, to look at your own beliefs about finance, maybe beliefs you didn't even know you had. It's less about the specific people and more, well, about the mindset they embodied.
That's a great way to put it. And the first big lesson he really hammers home is this. The rich don't work for money. They figure out how to make money work for them. That's not just about getting a bigger salary, is it?
No, not at all. It's a fundamental shift. You move from trading your hours for dollars, which is what most jobs are, to actually building or acquiring things that bring in money, even when you're sleeping. Think about owning a business or stocks that pay dividends, maybe rental properties, that kind of thing. The focus changes completely from being an employee of money, basically, to being an owner of assets that produce money. For a lot of folks, that's a huge leap from what we're usually taught.
Which flows right into his next point, which can be a bit controversial. Kiyosaki argues pretty strongly that while traditional schools don't really teach financial intelligence, he says learning about money yourself, understanding cash flow, investments, taxes, it's absolutely crucial.
Right. And this is where he really emphasizes taking personal responsibility. You got to educate yourself. He's not just talking about balancing your bank account. It's about understanding the language of money, how assets work, how debt can sometimes be used strategically, the tax system, stuff you rarely get in a standard classroom. It's like learning the rules to a whole different game.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting and maybe where people get a bit confused sometimes. His third key point, the difference between assets and liabilities. It sounds simple, but rich people, he says, buy assets, things that put money into their pockets. But the poor and middle class, they often buy liabilities, things that take money out, sometimes thinking they're assets.
Exactly. And that distinction, while it sounds basic, is where the confusion often lies. Kiyosaki's point isn't just about accounting definitions. It's about your cash flow. How does it actually affect your wallet month to month? Take a house, for example. Culturally, we see it as an asset, right? But in the rich dad way of thinking, if it's constantly taking money out, mortgage, property taxes, repairs, insurance, then functionally, it's behaving like a liability. The key is understanding the real financial impact on you, not just its perceived value or what society calls it.
That focus on making smart choices, especially about what you buy, it leads to another big piece, risk. Many of us are taught, play it safe, avoid risk. But Rich Dad had a different view.
Yeah, he definitely encourages a different mindset. It's not about being reckless, though. It's about calculated risk. Rich Dad's philosophy was more like learn from mistakes, don't be paralyzed by them. Setbacks aren't failures you hide from. They're learning opportunities, essential ones, actually. You kind of need that perspective for any real innovation or, long-term financial growth. Be willing to try, learn, adapt.
So when you boil it all down, the real core takeaway seems to be the power of your mindset. Kiyosaki keeps coming back to this. Anyone can become wealthy, but the first step is thinking like wealthy people do.
And that means focusing more on creating value, on building things, businesses, solutions, assets that generate income, rather than just being on the receiving end, just consuming or collecting a paycheck. It's about seeing problems not just as problems, but as potential opportunities to build something. And that something could become an asset.
So what's the bottom line for you listening right now? If you're aiming for more financial freedom, maybe the biggest lesson from Rich Dad, Poor Dad is you got to shift how you think about money, your whole framework. Learn about it. It's okay to talk about it. And crucially, start actively building assets, even small ones. Start somewhere. Definitely something to chew on.
Yeah, and maybe it leaves you with this question to consider. When you look at your own financial choices, your spending, your investments, are you mostly acquiring things that will consistently put money into your pocket over time? Or are you mainly buying things that consistently take money out?